Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining our community information session update on the Fairvern Nursing Home. It's a pleasure to spend the next few minutes with you and sharing some really important information on the progress that we've made to date. We have a PowerPoint presentation that we're going to be working through, and all of this information will be available through a website, which we're going to let you know about. In addition, this webinar, as you noticed, is being recorded. So if we could advance to the next slide. Over the next number of minutes, we're going to introduce you to the project team. We're going to spend some time talking about the progress that has been made on the construction of the new home, as well as talk about the current home operations. And then lastly, where we are in terms of the operation and ownership of Fairvern transitioning to the District of Muskoka. And then, as I mentioned, we will be setting up a website, which is now live, that you can stay informed. And we also did receive some questions ahead of tonight's presentation, and we'll provide you with the answers to those questions that we received before tonight's presentation. Next slide, please. So please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Norm Barrett, and I'm the Commissioner of Health Services with the District of Muskoka. And long-term care is part of the Health Services Department. And I've been helping to facilitate the Fairvern project, which is quite complex and exciting. And joining me for the presentation is Jeff Yo, our Director of Facilities and Support Services, and Tariq Muharram, our Administrator of the Fairvern Nursing Home. So between the three of us, we're going to be alternating at different points across the presentation and covering off the items that I listed in the agenda. Next slide, please. So we did want to let you know about the number of people who are involved in various activities. So we have a number of working groups that have been contributing so far to ensure the successful completion of the transition of the operations of Fairvern to the District of Muskoka, and also on the design, construction, and future operation of the new Fairvern. And so just to highlight, we have an extended design committee, and this is the multi-professional group that is providing the overall oversight of the design of the new home. And so we have from District Council, we have District Chair John Klink, and the Chair of the Health Services Committee, Steve Clement. We have the Mayor of Huntsville, Mayor Terziano. We have the executive leadership of the design firm that we're using, Montgomery Sizem, and their key architects who are part of that design work. And we also have an expert advisor, Carolyn Klublein, who I believe is on this evening's webinar with us. And then we have a number of district staff who are working on this project, and also supported by two key members of the Fairvern Board of Directors who are working through as representatives of the Transition Committee. And so those are John Wright and Tracy Kusk. And so we've been working very closely in not only the design, but also planning out the transition. And lastly, we're joined also on the call tonight with the District of Muskoka's Chief Administrative Officer, Julie Stevens, who's also with us on the webinar tonight. Next slide, please. So before we get in, I just want to talk just a little bit about the mechanics of the presentation. So as I said, we're going to be answering questions that were provided previously. In case you have a question as we're going through, I would invite you to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit your question. We're going to collect all the questions that are captured during tonight's presentation, and we'll provide follow-up answers following the conclusion of this evening's presentation over the course of the next few days. So if you do have a question, again, that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And I'll introduce to you the website where you can go and get additional information. And the recording of this presentation will be posted to that website as of tomorrow as well. So just taking you through the progress to date, certainly this The redevelopment of Fairvern, meaning the replacement of the current home to a larger home, has been ongoing for many years, which predates where we're going to start today. And really important to recognize the great effort that Fairvern and its board of directors and the community have undertaken to get us to this point. We certainly don't want to not recognize this. For simplicity, we're starting as of 2020, but certainly I just wanted to recognize that there has been significant work done by Fairvern board of directors and the community that precedes us. So starting with the key milestones from 2020 in February, the district council of the District of Muskoka approved the transfer to take the steps to transfer the ownership and operation of the current Fairvern and its current board to be district owned and district operated. Moving into March, the district submitted to the Ministry of Long-Term Care an application to redevelop, meaning replacing the new home as well as expanding it from its current 76-bed designation to 160-bed designation. We knew that we had to undertake design work. We couldn't wait for the ministry's decision on our application. And so district council also directed staff to undertake those design activities. And so that work began in July of 2020, where the district hired the design firm of Montgomery Sizem Architects through a competitive bid. And then finally, at the end of 2020, we began operational planning for transition with the transition committee of the board of directors. And those are the members that I introduced previously, Mr. John Wright and Ms. Tracy Kusk. And also at the same time as we started formal planning of transition, the Ministry of Long-Term Care announced its approval of our application to redevelop Fairvern to a new 160-bed district operated home. Next slide, please. Moving into this year in April, District Council authorized the legal acquisition of Fairvern, and that is really how the corporate structure will take place. And we also were in the middle of recruiting for an administrator for the district's home, The Pines. And we met the gentleman on your screen during that process, Mr. Tariq Moharm. And we also were able to secure an offer of employment for Administrator Moharm, who started officially in his role in early June of this year. Moving into August of this year, the board of directors of Fairvern identified a number of key significant building system issues of the current Fairvern, primarily the heating boiler system and the backup electrical generator that required repairs. And at that time, the available funding to complete those repairs was not immediately available. And subsequently, District Council approved a bridge loan that could be used for facilitating the emergency repairs. Moving into September, we were able to confirm the location of the new Fairvern site, and District Council approved the acquisition of this land for the new Fairvern site near Center Street in the town of Huntsville. And we certainly want to greatly recognize the significance of this donation from the Standard Investment Corporation, represented by Mr. Gareth Cockwell and Mr. Claude Dowdy. And certainly this is a wonderful occurrence that has taken place that will ensure that the new Fairvern is right in the heart of the town of Huntsville, and we are so excited to be able to show you more about that. And then moving into October with the approval from District Council to acquire this donated land, that the planning and development work that is required in order to allow the project to continue is underway. So I'm going to hand this portion of the presentation that will focus on the construction of the new home over to Mr. Jeff Yo.
Thanks, Norm. So this slide is providing an overview of where the new site on Center Street is. If you can see this icon here, I'm just circling around that box that shows the Center Street property, and in relation to it, this is the existing Fairvern home property on there as well. So you can see, just for reference points, Fairy Lake, Vernon Lake, Highway 11, Highway 60, West Road, and Haynes Road. And so you can see that this is the Center Street property is a 7.32 acre property that's on the east side of Center Street, north of the intersections of Center Street and West Road, and south of Haynes Road. This is this next slide here is a zoom in of the Center Street site in particular, and you can see more of the details of its locations between Haynes Road and West Road. And the picture on the right-hand side of the slide is a perspective shot of the site as it currently exists if you're standing on the sidewalk on the west side of Center Street, looking towards the property where it will be developed. And as Norm had mentioned, the property has been donated by Sanford Investment Corp, represented by, Gareth Cockwell and Claude Doughty. This next slide is showing a detail of the concept or draft site plan that's being considered for the development of the new home. We'll talk more about this, but this outline that you can see on the plan here now is the in this box in yellow with the blue box in front. It denotes the shape of the building as it exists in its concept plan. But just for orientation purposes on this drawing, you can see on the left side, this is Center Street as it exists now. And you'll see that there's a proposed new municipal street that will come in and service the lands for beyond the Fairvern property as it's been donated, that will be developed. And that's the new home will face onto that property. You can see on the left side, in the current draft plan, we're showing that shipping and receiving would be on the closest to Center Street end of the building. The building would, as it sits in the concept plan right now, rests about between 60 to 130 feet back from the proposed street, with parking along the front and a new main entrance, and more parking to the east side of the property for visitors and staff. Some other key notes about this: you can see this is the property line or property boundary for the site. And there are some really exciting features that we've got in terms of the natural vegetation and barriers that are around it. To the north of the site, there's a conservation area there. And the intent, as we were looking at the development of the site, is that we want to try to maintain as much of the natural vegetation on the site as we can, and take advantage of the topography of the site to ensure that the home has a nice civic presence on the new municipal street, but is also has good relationships with the other developments that will be built around the home. This next slide here shows the perspectives of the draft plan massing of the building. And again, looking at from the approaches and views from Center Street. Now, the one thing I will point out with these drawings, these do not obviously take into context the vegetation that's going to be remain on the site. So it's more just to provide a sense of the massing and size of the building as it relates to Center Street. Again, these are the draft plans that we've been reviewing and planning from the floor plan designs that we've been working with. And as we move forward with final designs of the home, some of these concepts or some of these designs can change to take better advantage of the topography or views. But generally, this gives a sense of how the home will appear as you can see it from Center Street through the trees, or as you are driving up the new municipal road that will tie into Center Street here on that you can see on the right hand side of the screen. I think we're turning this back over to Norm.
Thanks for that overview, Jeff. So moving now, as you can see, based on the draft diagrams of the home, there's been an incredible amount of work done behind the scenes on the design of the new Fairvern. And our thinking was really pushing the traditional design approach to long-term care homes and really trying to identify what is post-COVID and understanding all of the challenges that the long-term care sector has faced over the last while, and ensuring that the design of the new Fairvern is as future-proofed as possible. And so well before we challenged our design architects from Montgomery Sison, and I just wanted to recognize there's two members on the webinar with us today, Linnea and Netta. Thank you both for being here tonight. We spent considerable time to determine what are the key principles that should inform the design. And so this slide lays those out, and there's a snapshot of an exercise that we went through to kind of capture the thinking. But certainly we want the new Fairvern to be as future-proofed as possible. And so the space can adapt, and the way that the home supports residents can change over time as much as possible, including ensuring that the design supports the highest standards of infection prevention and control. We know that technology is a key enabler, and we want to ensure that that the home is designed with today's technology and also has the capacity to adapt and incorporate technology that has yet to be developed and yet to hit the market in the future. We wanted to ensure that the home reflects the social aspects of living, not focused solely around the clinical nursing aspects. And we wanted the home to enable the independence of the residents as their needs change over time. And then finally, from a workplace, we want the new Fairvern to be a center where employees come to work, and at the end of the day, they feel better than when they started their shift earlier in the day. Next slide, please. So we are going to tell you a little bit about a concept that we've incorporated into the design of the new Fairvern. And that concept is called a small home. And so if you've been to the current Fairvern or other long-term care homes such as the Pines, those homes are generally built around operational efficiency and ensuring that the activities of residents and the activities of staff are organized in a very efficient manner, stemming from acute care, stemming from the hospital sector. And so we wanted to really think about what does the new Fairvern feel like? And we wanted the new Fairvern to feel like it was as home-like as possible, and where the relationships and how people engage with their home and others was at the center of the design. And we wanted not only to have very large scale spaces for large activities, but numerous smaller spaces that can be used for different functions. We definitely don't want Fairvern to feel institutional in any way. And certainly the scale of the spaces, we want to be very accommodating and not intimidating. We want the home to help support residents who have behavioral complexities and help support their care through the design of the space. Finally, we want to ensure that the staff are connected to residents and to other staff, and that the work of the staff is, if we can shorten the travel distances or where they need to go to access the supports that they need for residents, we've thought of that. And we want to bring the outside inside as much as possible and the inside outside as much as possible. And then finally, given the COVID environment, all of this thinking to ensure that infection prevention and control are maximized in this space. So what does this all look like? The small home design is really, as we are all likely living today, if we're in a home or an apartment or a condominium, whatever it is, we are all generally used to coming from our bedroom, and we would come to the social heart of the home, which is likely the living room or the kitchen. And so we wanted the small home concept where residents live to have everything that they would be used to within their home-like environment. So the spaces that they live in, so the activity space, the living space, the space where they eat, the space where they bathe, the space where they sleep, the space where they visit, the space where they engage in emotional and spiritual activities are all within the area that they live. They don't have to leave their small home and go to another part of the home, for example, to dine or, for example, for activities. That all of those spaces are within their own small home. So we've taken this small home building block and then created the schematic design, which Mr. Yo will take you through to show you how we've taken this small home design and now laid that out into the new Fairvern.
So as Norm had mentioned on that, when we were looking at the previous slide and looking at this slide, you can see the small home model that was on the previous slide would fit into these blocks of orange, yellow, blue, and green. And essentially what you find is that the small homes are built of 13 or 14 resident home units or beds. And then they form the two small homes together form the larger resident home area of 27 units. And in comparison to some traditional long-term care models, typically those larger resident home areas are 32, but they also don't get the benefits that as Norm had described through the small home concept of smaller travel distances, closer to the amenities that the residents provide. So when you look at the overall outline shape of the building, you can see it's on one level, you will have two small homes will form a resident home area of 27, and there'll be two resident home areas per floor. And then that extends up over 3 floors to a total of 160 beds. And then also, as I was talking about earlier on one of the earlier slides when we were looking at the site plan, it all focuses around the concept of moving from small home to the neighborhood of the resident home areas to the main street where residents can access some of the community-based or services that they would have. And some of the things that are being planned for that community space or common area of the building include obviously reception, an area for worship, possibly a cafe, beauty and barber. There's also consideration for adding some supplemental programs in terms of childcare or adult day programs, as well as some other district related office functions. And certainly it'll all been to the benefit of the residents and to the neighborhood when the building's complete. This next slide is intended to show the history of the design evolution to the small home, primarily focusing in on the efficiencies that were found in creating the travel distances. And so when on these slides, you can see on the left-hand side, there is the Pines as it exists now for comparison purposes. And then in the center of the slide, you'll see a centralized version and on the right-hand side, a decentralized version. And when we're looking at these centralized and decentralized versions, this is primarily speaking around dining and the impact of whether or not dining could be incorporated into the small home and what efficiencies came out of that in terms of staffing benefits for operational efficiency, as well as resident experience improvements and limiting their travel distance so they don't have to walk as far when they're going for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And what you can see is through the process, even though there's been a significant amount of time working to the point of the property selection, there's been a significant amount of work that's gone in through the extended design committee to evaluate all the efficiencies that could be gained by refining the design down to try to realize some of these efficiencies. And if you look at the charts at the bottom of the screen, you can see those efficiencies that were gained truly limit both staff and resident travel distances in comparison to the traditional home models that we've built and currently operate, and that are seen through the Pines and in other homes around the province, that we've seen more than half reduction of travel distance in that through those efforts. So through that, this next slide just kind of brings it back to a summary of the small home design and the benefits of it. So we have, as I mentioned earlier, the 2 small home plan of 13 and 14 residents will form an RHA. Through that, there's an improved staffing benefit and operational efficiency associated with that. Our architectural firm, Montgomery Sizem, has through that process as well identified that we've seen efficiencies in the gross floor area that the building will actually require to be built or occupy, which results in lower construction costs. And again, the optimized travel distance for staff and residents is a benefit as well. And you can see here, we've just summarized the gross floor area for this building is expected to be 135,000 square feet. And the key point that we wanted to identify on this slide too, as well, is that the travel distance for the resident, for the furthest resident to the center of the plan is 68 meters, which is a significant improvement of other plans we've looked at. And this is the concept of, the concept of the small home design that has gone through the extended design committee and will form the evolution of the final design process, or be the basis for the final design process that we will be following going forward. So where do we go from here? Construction stages. So currently we have with small home design, that evolution and the selection and finalization with the Center Street property, we are moving from schematic design into final design. And that process will, including with the regulatory approvals that need to come with it from the ministry, will take place now and into 2022. We anticipate that we will be tendering the project in late 2022. And then construction, the plan is for construction to begin in the spring of 2023. It's a significant project with a lot of work to complete. And we're anticipating that occupancy for the building would occur in 2025. All of these things combined, it's important to note that even with the property selection and the duration of time that we've got to this point, recognizing the earlier efforts of the Fairvern Capital Committee when the project was first started, we anticipate that the project is only about 6 months. There's about a 6-month deviation from what the original plan had contemplated. So we still think we're in great shape to get the building completed. So with that, I would turn it over to Tarek.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be with you virtually to talk about this important project for the community here in Huntsville and the surrounding area in Muskoka. We've spoken a fair bit this evening about the new home and the exciting features that it's going to have. But of course, we've got important work to do during the next few years, not just on developing the new property, but also on maintaining the existing home and providing excellent care for our residents. And so, not to forget that piece, while of course the new Fairvern, its concept, the support from the District of Muskoka, were all elements that attracted me here to take on this project. Want to focus a little bit on and recognize the contributions of our existing team members as we look forward to the future. So to that end, you've probably heard certainly earlier in this presentation and elsewhere in the past couple of months, we've been doing work on the existing Fairvern because the building is older and there are elements that are needing repair and replacement. And so we've done a number of different projects to make sure that our home is as comfortable as possible for the residents we care for, the residents who live here, and of course our staff members and visitors. And that would include a very large boiler project that we were able to complete with the kind support of the District of Muskoka through District Council and staff, a new handrail project, an HVAC project to make sure that we have effective air conditioning throughout the home and air circulation, certainly during the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, very important features, and a number of other projects that we're working on in the home to make sure that we get to the destination, and it's not just a focus on the destination, but also the journey to get there. And so I want to take a moment to recognize the contributions of our team in helping to deploy that work, both the employees here at Fairvern and of course, district staff, of course, district council, and all of the other folks who have gone into helping us to accomplish this goal and keep moving forward. Certainly want to extend an invitation for those individuals who might want to volunteer and support our home. As we're hopefully in the tail end of the pandemic, we'd love to welcome back volunteers to the home to continue supporting our operations. And of course, potential staff members as we grow from 76 beds to a much larger home of 160 beds. We're going to need additional help in the form of not just volunteers, but also employees. So certainly wanting to build those relationships with people who are already in the community and hopefully attract some new folks from elsewhere in Ontario to come join our team here in Huntsville. So with that, I'm happy to pass it back to Commissioner Brett.
Sorry, Jeff, we need to go back. There we go. Thank you. And so thank you for that overview. And certainly we can't understate as much as we're looking forward to the opening of the new Fairvern, that the focus on quality and compassionate care at Fairvern today remains our primary focus. I'm sure many of you are wondering about the plans for when will the district be in a position to assume the operation of Fairvern, and we expect that will take place at a point before the new home is open. There's certainly a number of steps that have already been completed and still many more to go. So staff did present a number of pieces of work to a recent joint committee meeting of the district's Health and Finance and Corporate Services as part of satisfying the steps that need to take place as far as the corporate transfer. Now that we've completed those initial requirements, we are now in a position where a formal transition plan is now being developed. That transition plan will identify all of the number of things that need to happen. So for example, as you can imagine, when a workforce moves from one employer to another, there's a number of things from a labor law perspective and labor relations and to ensure that all of our obligations to unions and employees are carefully thought of and are taken and completed appropriately. There's a number of steps that need to happen from a legal perspective of contracts that are currently made with Fairvern need to transition to the District of Muskoka. And then how do we harmonize infrastructure like finance and payroll and information technology, just to name a few. So that plan will address all of those activities that need to happen. And then certainly from a regulatory requirement, the Ministry of Long-Term Care has its own process that it has to complete, where the minister will have to designate the current licenses, that have been issued to Fairvern and then designate them to the District of Muskoka. So all of that to say there's a lot of work that is being planned out as to when it will happen. And that plan we expect from a staff perspective to bring back to District Council early in 2022. And with District Council's approval of that plan will identify a targeted transition date. So we're not at a point where we know and can communicate what that date will be. The steps to determine that and then present that to District Council is currently what staff are focusing on. And again, we expect that report and series of recommendations will go to District Council early in 2022. Next slide, please. So we're moving into how to keep connected and what will be coming next. So we're really excited about our first community information session. We certainly expect as the project in terms of the district's transition to operation, as well as the design and construction of the new Fairvern progresses, that we will host future community information sessions with you. And we look forward to that. In the meantime, there has been a website that has been is now live. That website is on the screen, engagemuskoka.ca/Fairvern. And that's where the most up-to-date information will be housed. So this presentation, as well as additional details, will be added to that site. So if you are looking for the most up-to-date information, I would encourage you to bookmark that website and visit it periodically for all the most current updates. There is also some interactive tools at that website. So we do have the ability, if you have a question that you'd like to submit a question, we will be compiling an ongoing list of frequently asked questions. I would expect if it's a question that I have, there's likely somebody else that has that question. So we want to keep all of the questions and answers in and maintain them. And that will be at that site. Photos as construction starts and such will be made available on that website as well as schedules and other key important dates that will be all made available through that website. Next slide, please. So these are the questions that we had received ahead of tonight's presentation. Again, if you have a question that we haven't answered in this presentation, please, if you would like, the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen will open up a window where you can enter a question. We will gather all those questions and answer them, and those answers we will make available on the Muskoka Engage/Fairvern website. So the first question that we received is, what will happen to the land that the current Fairvern is located on? So the current Fairvern nursing home was the previous Huntsville hospital site. And when the current hospital went into operation, that previous site became what is Fairvern Nursing Home today. So that location is owned provincially. And so we expect when we move out into the new Fairvern that there would not be an ability to sell or recuperate any costs, and that would be a provincial decision that's made at that time. And so we're not exactly sure of what provincially will happen to that site when the district moves away. And certainly if the province announces more information on what might happen, we'll certainly make that available. Next slide. So as you know, we did consider a site that was originally tied to when Fairvern started to pursue redevelopment and initially into a 96-bed home. And this particular parcel of land was on Earls Road in the town of Huntsville. And so following careful consideration, District Council decided not to proceed with that site due to challenges with servicing and coordination of development compared to other potential properties. And we certainly want to thank the board of directors as well as the town of Huntsville and district for Mr. Dubé and his family for their generous donation. And who put significant amount of time to help consider this potential site. And certainly, thank you in this brief form is absolutely not adequate enough. So we are tremendously thankful for that potential site. And over the course of deliberations, as mentioned, another site was determined to be preferred to move forward, and that's the Center Street site that Mr. Yo took us through today. So certainly there's been questions around is the project delayed, and certainly the number of years that have spanned since the redevelopment project first started. And as I mentioned, when I introduced kind of the major milestones, there has been an incredible amount of work that started in 2016 and likely before by the board of directors. And that was originally around redeveloping Fairvern from a 76-bed home to a 96-bed home. When the district became involved and submitted an application for the provincial expansion, moving the project from 96 beds to 160 beds really created an entirely new project, and it wasn't possible to scale the work that had been done previously on 96 beds to 160 beds. It really was a clean slate and really a new project. And so in essence, the work that was done previously had to start fresh with new conditions and new parameters. And so that's really what has informed the timing, and where we are with the Fairvern board of directors, and the collaboration that we've had has been tremendous for allowing in fairly short time advancing this 160 bed design work, and also leading to the province approving our application for building this new 160 bed Fairvern over the next number of years. Next slide, please. So we did get an inquiry about as a member of the Legion about getting further details. And not only I would expect members of the Legion, but other community groups or individuals of the community. Again, the best way to keep informed is through the engagemuskoka.ca/Fairvern website, where all the up-to-date information will be maintained. And as I said, that will allow for two-way communication. So if a member of the community has a question, that can be shared on the Engage website, and then we'll be able to get a fulsome response and then share that information with the community through that website. Again, when will the redevelopment start? Is it on the same site, elsewhere, timelines, and how many units? So hopefully today's presentation has laid out the location, has shared with you the design thinking around really creating a future facing long-term care home, which is really based around the small home and creating spaces that are as close to the kinds of spaces that we've lived in for our lives, up to the point where Fairvern becomes an individual's home. And again, our Engage Muskoka website is really the best place for keeping connected and any additional questions that you or a member of the community might have. Engaging with family members into the design and input of Fairvern. So certainly as the project moves along, and we shared with you really schematic concepts, there's detailed work that needs to happen. And as that process unfolds, when there is engagement opportunity, we will certainly make that information available through our Engage website. And as that process continues to advance, those engagement opportunities are so important will be shared through the Engage website. And certainly, just before we conclude, if members of the community are interested in helping to support the home in a number of different ways, again, we heard from our administrator, Mr. Tariq Moharam, that when we're able to welcome volunteers back in the home when COVID protocols allow. We are so excited for that day. And again, you've heard me say on numerous occasions about our Engage website. So there is an opportunity not only to visit it, but you can actually sign up to be kept informed. And so when new information comes, if you sign up, you'll get a notice of that. And again, we would welcome engagement through this website. And finally, thank you so much for spending your evening with us. And just a final thank you to all of staff who have contributed so much to make this evening possible, and all the work that happens each and every day in Fairvern, and all the work that's happening behind the scenes towards moving to a brand new 160-bed resident-focused home. We are so excited to see where we are today, and as we take steps going forward in the future. So again, thank you so much for attending. Again, thank you for submitting a question through the question and answer if you were interested in doing that. And as I mentioned, a recording of this presentation will be posted on our Engage website tomorrow. So if there's other people within your family or within your social network that might be interested, by all means, please encourage them to visit, and they will be able to have this recording at their disposal. And I look forward to continuing these updates and sharing our progress with you. So with that, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we'll conclude tonight's presentation.